So the topic today, what I'm going to talk about is a combination of what I have done for my clients earlier, how I have created framework for improving and innovating customer experiences, and how that has actually generated quite impressive results for the clients. So that's the main content we're going to talk about today. I'm not going to introduce myself too much because I think Paul did more than great work already in that. So what I probably would like to mention though is that here is this address called add value to me / customer dash experience blueprint. So that's where you can actually get more training on the topic I'm going to talk about today. So there's one hour, 3 videos, 20 minutes each, and you can download templates and other materials. So you can learn how to create custom experience strategies and blueprints if that's something of interest to you. And of course, LinkedIn, let's connect in there, and the Hivemind network. Paul already mentioned that I have quite many hobbies. I actually 2010 graduated as a scuba diving instructor. So I was afraid of deep waters, and I didn't know how to get rid of that fear, because when I was like swimming on the sea or anything like that, and I knew that it's deep underneath me, I just really didn't feel comfortable. And being a little bit extreme guy and always wanting to do the best I can in everything I do, so I ended up actually becoming a scuba diving instructor in 6 months. Usually people spend 12 to 18 months on it, but I did it in 6 months, and I'm not afraid of deep water anymore, I can tell you. Here is one picture that is from year 2010 when I was diving on Christmas. So we had our Christmas hats on. That one of those is my wife, and one of them is my friend. And I leave it up to you guys to decide which one is which one. And then yeah, motorcycling. So that's about me. If you have any more questions, I think my LinkedIn profile is more than extensive describing the stuff I've done. So feel free to go there. So some case examples of my results. I don't know why it looks like this. Okay, so it's animations. So here are three cases that I have chosen. I have 12 cases that I have described, and I can send you the PDF file for reading the rest of the cases. But anyway, these are the three main ones from last year. So one of the clients I work with is called Ainacom, and it's a telecoms company from Finland. And they had some serious problems in their customer experiences, business processes, and actually even their business results, profitability, and revenue generation. So they really needed help there, and I engaged with them and helped them to save about £800,000 at the end of the day. So we're going to talk about that case in a bit more detail today, but here's a couple of other cases too. Diacor is a private hospital chain in Finland. They have 6 private hospitals in there. And this is a funny case because they were actually losing a lot of money in their invoicing process. And isn't the invoicing process pretty much the one that we are supposed to use to get the money coming into the company? But they were really spending money on invoicing their clients, and that's then when I start doing process mapping and customer experience mapping and aligning those two things together. And we were actually able to save about £150,000 in about 2 weeks. So the process was a huge mess, and the customer experience was just awful. So basically, we redesigned it and replaced a few of the systems in there. The reason why it says projected is that because there's still one system that they need to replace, and that project is in progress. So they're not going to get that full benefit before that system project is finalized. And then salibändi is actually Finnish, and that means floorball. I don't know if anyone on this call has actually played floorball, but it's like indoor hockey. So basically you have a stick on your hand, and then there's like white round light ball which you are supposed to put in a hockey goal. So that's how you play it. And they have like 50,000-60,000 members today in their this association. And their problem was that even though they are not for profit company, so still you cannot really keep on losing money. You need to make to that zero budget that has been set for you. You don't have to make profits, but it doesn't mean that you can lose money either. And they were losing about £100,000 per year. So what we had to do is we really had to look into the customer experience and how we can use the money generated from the membership fees in better way, plus to make sure that the membership numbers are growing. And we were able to do that in about 9 months. So we generated new members, and then cost efficiency was improved and some other things, and that led to 100K more profit. So here are examples of things that can be done fairly quickly if the organizations are ready to change, and we implement the right things that will create the right results, usually including customer experiences and business process management and IT systems. Some other companies I work with, there are quite many. I've probably worked with over 100 companies in total in the past 12 years that I've been consulting. Some of these companies you might know or might not. From US, DST Systems, and some others. CHEP is from US. From UK, Apple, BT, and Fidelity, Metro Bank, and then there's a bunch of companies from Finland and from South Africa, Hong Kong, Singapore, and some other countries. So it's just to show that I've been working really in industry wide, that's cross wide. So I haven't been in any specific industry so much. So let's go into services, and these are the services that I have been actually productizing. So as you probably know, consultants and consulting companies have a lot of services that are not really packaged as such, but they are something that they just give out and deliver based on the customer situation and tweak them. They might have some kind of wireframes and frameworks, or depending, and then they just adjust them. So these are the kind of services that I have really like packaged, so that I can either sell them as a one module or one package, or I can put them together. And I had divided them into different areas, so that you always usually you start from the assessments or the audits. So basically, if you don't have a voice of customer program in place, or voice of process, or voice of employee, then we can do some quick assessments to see how those things are, and whether you need to actually create a deeper program and start measuring them on a continuous basis. But in case that you actually have already some of those programs in place, then you just basically can audit them and see whether they are as efficient and effective as they should be. So that's where you start, because that will give you the data and the insight that you can use later to optimize the services that you need to optimize, or processes or IT systems. And usually that leads into design and strategy. So basically we're going to use the insights we have and we generated to design that how should the work look like, how should we serve the customers, what kind of processes should we have in place so that we are in the optimal efficiency, and so on. This could include customer experience strategies, process optimization, or designing those. It could include voice of customer or net promoter score. So that depends a little bit on the needs of the company and what kind of customers or end clients they have. So that's the design and strategy. And then you might move into optimization. So basically now we have data and insights on the current situation, and we have design as is and the to be situations, where you can see that, okay, these are the gaps between the reality we have today and where we would need to be. And then we start optimizing both the customer experiences and of course business processes and employee engagement and that kind of things. In this case, the customer experience innovation includes the business processes, because I put them together, but I show a bit later why those two things are put together. And of course then coaching and briefings and keynotes and white papers and blockings and all that kind of things are used as a support and training. It's actually a very effective way of changing the company culture to, for example, publish blogs in the intranet, or send newsletters to your employees about customer experiences every week. So I've been doing that for quite many companies. So I write custom-made blogs, and they email it out to their employees, so that we can actually change the culture based on what we need to change. And that's usually based on the assessments or other data that we know that which are the weak areas in the organization. So that's about the services. So why should you even care about the customer experiences? I'm not going to give you any big lecture on that, because everybody knows about that stuff, and there's so many blogs and articles and stuff on it. But there's one thing on this slide that I thought would be very useful for the Hivemind people, which is the last one. So it's also the theme of this today's presentation, that if you think about the new customers and then the existing customers. So the problem with the new customers is that you have acquisition costs with them. It's very rare that you get the clients to come in for free. Of course, if you have maybe high net promoter score, then they might come in a little bit cheaper because you don't have to spend on marketing and sales as much, but still you can end up spending on marketing and sales and other customer acquisition costs. So if you can keep the client for a longer time, especially if you are in subscription businesses like the telco companies that we're going to talk about later, then that's going to mean that if you can keep the client for the second and the third and the fourth year, that's when you start to make some real profits from the client. The first year is usually not very profitable because of the customer acquisition costs. So that's the power of the customer experiences and great processes that you have in place so that you can start profiting from the clients even more in the future than not just in the beginning. So that's something to think about for today. So let's go into the case example. This is something that I worked on for the past actually 3 years, and I'm going to soon tell you why it took so long time. Not to create the results, but to get to the situation where the results could be created. So a little bit about the company, because I would imagine that nobody knows much about this company, but in Finland it's fairly famous company because it's over 130 years old, and the telco companies in Finland used to be government owned, but then like 15 or 20 years ago, the government decided that they're going to privatize all the telco companies, and that's when things started getting very interesting in Finland, because you can imagine those companies that had been run like government institutions now suddenly were actually business liable. So they were actually responsible for their own revenue and own results. And Ainacom is one of those companies that used to be a local, small local telco company west of Finland, and then one day about 15-20 years ago they became this private company, and now they were they were just in serious trouble. So they had defined what they do as moving text, image, sound, video from one person to another. So if you think about these kind of statements, that are they customer centric or are they actually business centric or organization centric? So it's not very difficult to see that it's more about the features and the technology rather than the outcome that the clients could get. And of course they started understanding it because it's not selling very well, and anybody who's worked with telco companies knows that there's no way to make money from voice or SMS or data because there's too much competition for that. So you need some other services packaged around those things so that you can actually make money. And their choice was this unified communications, and it's a term for unifying all the communications that people may have, like you can see from the picture, email, video, voice, whatever data. So you get this one SIM card and application in your phone, and then you can do all that stuff under the same subscription and connect to your colleagues and friends and all that much easier, which is a good idea. So what was the challenge there is that this service that they came up with, it's actually now something that is not anymore unique in Finland, but 2 years ago they were the only company in Finland who had connected Microsoft Link with mobile network and landlines and all that stuff. So all of those things were combined. It didn't matter whether you had your landline or your mobile or you had your computer open, you had all those communications, same number, phone numbers and emails, everything just right there. And they were the only ones for 9 months who had that service. Now there are 2 other companies doing that in Finland, and it's not anymore unique. So they understood that situation. So they knew that they need to do something, that they're going to lose that uniqueness because it's not very difficult to copy technology nowadays. So somebody else will do it also. And at the same time, they were seriously struggling with their profitability. Their competitive capability wasn't very high. And then it was basically forcing the company pretty much to choose whether they change or they disappear. So that's the situation they were in. But then the challenge was that the CEO was appointed by the board, and he had very much pressure on changing and improving the company. So when you are in that kind of situation, it's very difficult to make your decisions because you know that you don't have many decisions to make. If they don't work out, you're not going to work out, and basically you're going to be jobless. So I started discussing customer experiences and business process optimization with him 3 years ago. I did like one sales meeting or whatever business development meeting every 4 to 6 weeks for the first year. And then after the first year, there had been so many meetings and I had been giving value in every meeting. I said that this cannot continue, that either we need to start engaging this in a real way, or we stop doing this. And he said that that's fine, we can stop doing this. Half a year later, the board decided that the CEO needs to go. He wasn't able to create any results, and it could be basically because he just couldn't make up his mind that what is the best way to go around it. And the new CEO came in, and of course I was happy about that because I was thinking that okay, now we get opportunity to actually move the things forward, because it was all proven and established that there's value, and it's going to change the company's future if they actually start focusing on the clients. So I had a meeting with the new CEO, and we had, I think, 6 meetings with him after that, and it was already 2 years in. And then he said that okay, let's do it. Let's look into customer experiences. Let's do the customer journey mapping and business process maps and see what we can do from there. So 2 years later we started, and 9 months from that the company was changed, and I'm glad to show you the results later, but it was quite amazing journey for us, and I'm quite actually happy that I didn't give up, even though I probably should have. So the solution we presented for them is based on the framework that I have built, which is a customer experience innovation. I'm not going to go into details of this framework itself because it would take probably a bit more than this call to explain the whole thing in it, but it really approaches the whole thing from understanding that what the customers are, or who the customers are, what they need, and what their expectations are, and what kind of outcomes are they looking for. And then you do the customer journey mapping and blueprints and all that stuff, and design the roadmap into better future, which basically means that we have seen the as-is situation, and then that as-is situation is then turned into to-be state. So this is where need to be, and these are the gaps, and then we just make a project that will take the company from where they are today to where they need to be tomorrow.
Jana,
yeah,
I'm going to interrupt and throw one quick question.
yes.
In trying to implement this framework, how extensive did you have to reach in terms of people or groups that needed to be brought together and work together under the process that's outlined in the framework?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, from very practical perspective, how this works is that I've done all the work for them at the background. So what we did first was a workshop where we planned the custom experience blueprint. That's the free training I'm giving out. So it's just extended format of that, so that we know who their clients are, what they want, and all that. And that was done in 1 day workshop. Those results were documented, and then we started evaluating that. Okay, so what do we have today? How is that unified communication service responding to the client needs? And one of the things we found was that installing the service. So you say that as a client, you say that okay, I'm gonna buy your unified communication service. So when can I have it? And the answer from them was 6 weeks. So they had to wait for 6 weeks to actually get the service up and running, because there was so many server configurations and all kinds of technological stuff going on at the background. And because the customer experience blueprint said that the clients cannot wait that long, because when they make the decision, they probably are already running out from their previous subscription, which is usually like 4 weeks notice period and so on. So 6 weeks is not acceptable. So that was one of the challenges that need to be solved. So then we had another workshop where we mapped the whole customer journey to see the end-to-end picture from the customer perspective. Then we had a 2 days workshop where we map all the processes related to that customer journey. It was 274 steps or something like that, if I remember right. It was a huge wall full of post-it notes. So then what they had to do, they actually had to hire an interim guy who took the post-it notes from the wall and took the photos and put it in the Visio and Excel and documented all that so that it could be then used later also, because now it was just on the wall. And
So
after that,
not to interrupt you, I apologize. My
yeah.
question was about how extensive the what's the right word? The work team that needed to be brought together in order to carry this out. I'm going to guess
Ah,
there were operations teams, there may have been marketing teams, and who else besides that did you have to bring together in order to get this work done successfully?
yeah, sorry, I misunderstood. So now you know that what we did. So who were the people in it was that I was running the whole design for the system. So I was the interim or external consultant on that. On top of that, what I usually do in this customer experience innovation is a cross section of all the people related into that customer journey. So basically, my desire is that there's at least one person from every single department that somehow is related to the customer journey. And there's a very specific reason for it is that those people usually, I haven't seen it ever before, that they actually would come into one workshop where all of them are in the same place and we are talking about the end-to-end customer journey. So basically in this case there was about, I think, 25 people,
Right.
which I know that is a lot of people into one workshop. But because the end-to-end customer journey was very long, and we wanted they really didn't want to spend too much time on it. So what we could have done is like had different workshops for different groups of people, but because that would have taken probably 4 weeks, 5 weeks just to get through the workshops. So I said that let's take 2 days, let's have everybody in the room, let's make sure there's enough wall space, and then we're gonna talk about all of this together. So what we did is we did with the whole 25 people the end-to-end journey with the main steps, and then after that we little bit went into breakout groups, and then people started building the details depending on what they know about. And it was something, one quote from one of the people in there was saying that I wouldn't have believed that how much things we do to make this one thing happen for the client, because they never spoke to each other in different departments. So
Good.
it's,
That's a good insight to come from an event like this.
yeah, I mean they were really like, I mean you can imagine how I was internally laughing inside me, of course from happiness, not from any other reason, that
Of
people
course.
were saying that I didn't know that you are doing that. Why is it that you do this? Because if I did in my here process this thing, you wouldn't need to do that. Well, why haven't you done it? And then I'm thinking like, oh, that's good, because that's how they learn, and that's how we can create the new to be state. And that's why it doesn't take so much time. I mean, 9 months to change a whole telco company, it's actually not that much time.
So I'm going to give you a time check. There is about 10 minutes left
Yeah,
in the
and
presentation
that's
slide.
enough. Yeah, that's enough. Because this was about the framework and how you can build the framework around the customer's real need. Because I always start with the outcome in mind. So what do we need to get there? And this is the one that works for innovating customer experiences. I'm not going to go into details of it because there's quite many things that you have to do throughout the whole method. But like we discussed earlier with Paul, there's like three different main phases, which is discover, plan, and implement. So in the discover, you use those assessments and data and other ways and workshops to understand that what is the world looking like and how should it look like, and then you plan how where we want to be, what are the risks, what are the roadmaps, and so on, and then you actually start implementing them.
And
So from
to point out, the discover phase is also where the internal stakeholders begin to interact with each other in ways that they never have before. So that's part of their learning experience, trying to learn how to work with each other in a new and different way.
Yeah, that's where it starts, but it doesn't actually never end. Even the implement part is so that it should be something that's why we have the trans one, which is quick wins. So we're gonna show something tangible in few days or maximum 1 week, and then we're gonna share with everyone that okay, this is the result that came. It needs to be something tangible. For example, this client was about to leave us, but because we used this method, then we were able to identify the client, and now we have discussed with the client that they're not going to leave us and they're gonna renew their subscription. That would be very tangible quick win. And then you go, of course, for the value and more advanced things that actually require system changes and
So
company changes.
there's an interesting question that this raises, but I want to let you get through your slides, and I'll raise it at the end.
Okay, so this upper right corner, create custom experience blueprint, that is the training I was mentioning earlier. So this is more about how do you actually make sure that the company stay on the track. And this also works with companies like Einacon that are not ready to change yet. So you read it so that you start it from the left lower corner where it's the business as usual. So that's where the companies are. They are in the business as usual unless they have a burning platform, which is called disruption here. And even if they don't have a burning platform, you can probably create one in the company because there is no perfect company and there's always ways to serve clients better. So this method approach actually lives from the perspective that we need to create a burning platform and urge to change the things. We need to increase awareness around the things that we can have and we can do better and so on. There is of course the other opposite way to approach things, which is more positive, and that is the things that you can gain. But there has been quite much research whether B2B, especially business to business people, whether they work out of fear or whether they work out of opportunities. And for some reason in business world, people work out of fear. So this model has been designed to address that. So you need to find the fear and you need to bring it visible, and then you need the prioritization because there might be, but like the CEO I mentioned earlier, he just didn't put it in the high enough priority. So it needs to be prioritized. The key thing that we need to do this because we need the revenue, we need the cost efficiency, we need the better service levels because we are here, blah, 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 whatever the situation is. And that's when you do the commitment. So you say that, okay, we're going to fix this. We're going to make this priority one, and we are committed to do whatever it takes to fix this. And that's when you actually can start taking action. So there's a lot of these emotional and decision making points way before you actually get to do the action, because that is so easy. You just do the workshops and surveys and whatever and design and have professionals coming in, and that's it. That's taking the action, and then you just manage the change after that. But getting there, that's a big thing. Something to think about, I think, because at least for me, it's very easy to talk about this taking action part and the change management part and the continuous monitoring or metrics part, but we need to keep those first four steps in mind also. So this is pretty much it. You had some question, Paul. Oh yeah, the results. Let me share the results. You had seen that it was 800,000 pounds in money, which seems to be the, the thing that is most interesting to people. But personally, I think there were so many big changes. They changed the whole company culture. And what they were able to do is to align the customer experiences in the business processes into enterprise architecture and the systems. And that is something that not many companies have. And that is actually why they were later bought by their bigger competition, because they saw that, okay, these guys clearly now found out what they want to do in the market. They had this fairly unique service at that time. So we better buy them off from the market. We get this good product and a good company to start building bigger. And they are now being built much bigger after that. And actually, if you are wondering how many weeks it took them after we had done all the workshops, it was only 2 weeks to deliver the service to the client after they ordered. So we took 4 weeks away from the whole process. And the thing why it could have been made even more efficient, but the reason was that we didn't want to do any major IT system renovations because that would just take time and be expensive. Another thing was that we didn't want to get rid of any people, so we actually had to find a new job and new things to do within the company for the people whose job were taken basically away based on the process optimization. That's one of my values, that I really don't want to create any more jobless people in this world. So I help them to actually design that where they can redeploy the people, and they're now actually quite happy because their roles are much more meaningful. They're doing work that clients are happy of, and they don't have to do that demeaningless work they were doing before. So that's why it was 2 weeks and sort of compromise between the different things that we had to choose from.
That's a very interesting value proposition, or not proposition, value statement. that I think is one that is, I don't say it's unique, but it's unusual to hear devotion to the idea of maintaining employment rather than simply driving cost out and raising efficiency, no matter what the human cost might be to doing that.
Yeah, it's a big discussion topic, and my personal opinion in that is that it's not those people's fault that somebody put them to do work that is not productive. You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
bad processes, bad leadership. So when we fix the processes and leadership, we can always give them opportunity to do something that is useful. And of course, there's always people who will choose that they don't want to do the new thing they're supposed to do, and then they end up leaving. But that's their choice.
Can I say at this point that we can open the floor up for questions? Any other questions that folks have? As I mentioned, I have one, but I want to give other folks who are desperate to ask something an opportunity
Yeah.
to speak up. Is there anybody there just chomping at the bit who wants to throw something at Yana?
Yes. Hi, Paul. It's Ethan here. Hello.
I
Hi, Anna. How's it going? Thanks very much for that, by the way. That was a really good presentation to kind of see your perspective. And I like the value um, of keeping staff on, because that's also something I found. There's actually almost no need to get rid of staff, because what you can then do is redeploy them to scale horizontally once you've got rid of these meaningless processes. But I'm interested in why you chose not to approach some of the technology aspects, because there are ways of working that allow you to almost flow that EA through. So you've got the customer experience and everybody aligns to that. There's probably a lot of development processes that are equally as, I don't want to say meaningless, but actually there's a lot of work on the boards that actually, from an enterprise perspective, don't align immediately to the customer experience. What was the reason for not doing that, or was it just the quick wins? Was it the companies? What was your thoughts around it?
Well, they set the scope to be that unified communications product. So I didn't have any access to anything outside that product.
Sure.
So my question was that how can I make the biggest impact within that one product, which is now their main product anyway. So that was the reason that I don't have any access to top senior.
Sure.
CEO was the only one who was supporting the new CEO. He was the only one, but there wasn't any other high leaders involved in the project. So,
Right. Okay. So how influential was that support then, from your perspective? Was it?
well, he was the CEO, and he said
Exactly,
we do
yeah.
what we need to do. So he gave us the mandate to change it. And of course, before we actually could change it, we had to prove that that it's going to bring more money than take away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So
good stuff. Excellent.
yeah, but it's fairly easy if you do the maps. If you
Yeah,
do
totally.
really good as is and to be maps, then it's easy.
Absolutely, and especially if it's delivered incrementally in a lot of cases as well, because you start to get that value
Yeah.
early. Right, well, thanks very much for that. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple of quick comments and a question. First of all, I want to point out, Yana, that your email address is hivemindnetwork.com. I know that you know that. It's just a typo here.
Oops. Yeah.
That's okay. I really like this presentation because it presents in very clear terms the approach, the methodology, and the philosophy that you take in trying to understand client problem and then respond with a process or methodology that is that fits in with the notion of coping with an organization that may be reluctant to change, even though they want to change, they're reluctant to do it. You've sort of outlined a framework that takes that into account and helps move the organization, not just in terms of business process or technology, but in terms of the way people think and the way they react to each other, the way they work together. It seems like that's part of the framework that you've devised, and so I'm very grateful to have an example like this to use, because I think there are others within the Hivemind network who may be trying to think about how they can productize the services that they deliver to their clients. And I think that this is an excellent example of a way to do that. One of the comments that I want to make, however, the question that I'm actually going to raise for you, and we can go back and talk about the framework itself in a second, but the question I want to raise is this. The approach that this framework espouses is a traditional consulting approach. We're going to start with understanding the problem, then we're going to spend some time evaluating and assessing how you're doing against the challenge that you say that you have for yourself. Then we're going to design a potential solution and think about the various steps or actions that need to be taken in order to implement it. Then we're actually going to implement all those changes. And the question that I raise is, seems to be a little bit different from what is emerging within Hivemind Network as a more agile approach to consulting and framework structure, where the value gets delivered much earlier, chronologically gets delivered much earlier in the process. Now, I don't think that one is better than the other. I'm simply sort of creating a contrast between the two. I want people to comment on whether they think that this traditional approach has lost its value and can't be applied anymore, or whether it still has value and yet somehow can work in conjunction with the more agile way that many of the Hiveminders are working currently.
Hi, can I jump in there, Paul?
Please do.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to actually say it's fine. The reason why I say that is because actually every organization you go to is somewhere on a continuum. So actually to kind of go always agile, if that makes any sense, when the company aren't ready to think that way, requires a lot of coaching to get them to a place where they can think that way and then be in a more agile space. I mean, Dan's also mentioned that it's agile is easier in dev than in business transformation. I'd actually argue that that's not always the case, because I've successfully applied it in business transformation, almost pitting, if you like, A/B testing, rather, the team's performance in one place compared to another. So we actually get empirical evidence as to whether the change will actually work lower level. So I'm not sure this is incongruent. It's one of those things where you've got to go in and kind of taste the atmosphere, if you like. If you go in and you start to see card walls all over the place, that they're in their place somewhere. If you go in and actually map out the customer journeys and you find that there is a whole heap of, if you like, cross-departmental communication, there seems to be a lot of waste, etc., then that's a different place to start. So I would argue that I don't think they're incongruent and certainly not incompatible, but it all has to align to value at the end of the day. So is that useful, not useful? That makes sense?
It is. It's an interesting perspective. It sounds like what you're suggesting is whether you can take an agile approach depends on how mature the organization itself is in terms of thinking about and dealing with its own problems.
Yeah, exactly. I think taking NGN as an example, they spent a lot of time doing kind of a cultural transformation, which by far, I think most people would agree, by far it's the most difficult part of any sort of change. It's the culture, really. That's the longest part. So actually taking bite-sized chunks often is a little bit of an easier way to do it. But then again, this doesn't apply across the board. It's where in the continuum they actually are between the more agile and more classical.
So Gary, I see your flag. I'm going to give Jana a chance to respond to this, and then I'll recognize you, Gary.
All right.
Jana,
well,
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking that I clearly have failed to explain something, because this doesn't get much more agile than this approach has been, because the thing is that there's no fixed things in this. And why I have just put the services in this order is that this is the classical order, but you can take any one of these bits and pieces and use them in any order you want. And in Einocom case, why it went linear is because the outcome was that the company is going to bankrupt basically unless they can make money. So the question was that how do we get more revenue and how do we get higher cost efficiency so that we can save money. So those were the two only problems they were interested in. And I always think that it's so much better to design first what you're going to do next and then go around and do it and not to fail doing it, rather than just go ahead and do it. Because if we started from the IT upwards in that Einocom case, they would have ended up building a hugely complex ERP system. That is what they were actually planning to do. And I was lucky enough to be able to kill that project for the reason that I knew that what they're going to do is they're going to take their horrible customer experience, bad processes, implement ERP in it, and that's it. So that's why it was very agile approach, because what we did is we we in just few days designed the whole thing. It didn't take us more than 4 days to complete the design, and after that we were implementing from the framework that quick wins and value and big wins. And the big wins, I think they're still implementing some of the big wins because it took so much time to get rid of the systems. But the quick wins we had in just in few weeks. And then the value part was about 6 months where they did the big changes. They actually trained the people into their new roles and so on.
Good.
So
well,
in that sense, this is highly, yeah, all these modules you see in this one, you can use in different order. But of course, if you straight jump into implement Trans 3 Advanced, and you haven't done the previous stuff, it wouldn't make much sense.
Understood. I'm glad you clarified that. Gary, you raised a flag. I'm going to give you a chance to ask your question.
Well, I was really just going to jump in to defend Jana, really, before he did it himself, which was to say, what I heard him say. I think there were two different things. I think that the fact that all the boxes were lined up and there were a lot of boxes made it look like a kind of linear thing, but what he was describing wasn't actually a linear thing. And what he talked about was not spending money on IT. And my experience is that often people don't look at business processes until they're about to spend money on IT, and then they spend the money on IT even though they didn't need it anyway. So what I heard was an evolutionary type approach of trying things out, seeing how they go, and then moving on to the next thing. So I think it was totally consistent, Paul. I think the kind of myriad of boxes and beautiful alignment made it all look a bit Anderson-like, but it wasn't.
Understood. And I appreciate your clarifying that. Jana, I take it you would agree with that.
Yeah, and the thing actually, what you were able to reveal with your comment actually is that when you start productization, consulting work, like Dan said in the comments, it says that Agile is easier in development than in business transformation. So when you actually start productizing business transformation, this is what comes out of it, because it wouldn't be a product unless there was a clear process from the beginning to the end. And when the client is buying it, they see that, okay, I am actually getting a package, and it's not this fluffy consulting thing what they usually are. So this picture here is a result of productization rather than what I actually have done, because when I do it myself or with my team, with people in customer, we always design it for the client and adjust it based on the client needs. But then it's not a productized package in consulting, because this package here I can sell you with fixed price, and it's going to include the fixed things as you can see in the how box. It's going to take the fixed time, and that's why I call it a product, because there's all the main parameters of this thing are actually fixed, sort of fixed. It wouldn't be a product if there wasn't clearly that what is it, what does it do, why do you need it, how we're going to do it, how much is it going to cost me, how much is it going to take me time, how much is it going to take time from my employees, so what resources, because you ask who are the people that need to be in there. So this product comes with a list of the roles and people who need to be in the workshop. So that's why I call it a packaged product. But if it wasn't that, then it wouldn't be linear. But now it is linear because of the product presentation. So it was a good question from you.
Good. I see a couple of comments. Ethar is reiterating his support and understanding and agreement with the approach, particularly since he's a techie and not a business transformation guy, as he calls himself. And Dan's made the comment about the time that it's taken the client to realize how much of a crisis they're in, that is a factor that's going to influence how quickly the process can get implemented. I'm taking a guess that that's what Dan's meaning is there.
Yeah. I mean, Diacor was so simple case compared to that telco company, because they said that, can you make our invoicing process more efficient? How much it's going to cost us and how long it takes? And I said, it's going to take you 2 weeks. It's going to cost you a couple of million, and that's it. So, So so it's so different to Einacom, where I just the sales part took like 2 years, and
Yeah.
the CEO had to change. So
And Ethar makes a good point in his comment. Not everybody thinks that they're in crisis. They really sometimes they're just focused on tweaking and creating a little bit more efficiency and trying to get some sort of measure of value that they can measure, not realizing that what they're coping with is a more systemic problem that requires a broader perspective and activity in a variety of areas, not just in one area.
yeah, John
John Moore,
has it. Yeah.
yeah, go ahead,
No, I
answer.
was just saying that John has a good question. Then, so how do you go back and your next engagement? So if we talk about it in the context of this company, like I mentioned, that they were acquired by the biggest telco company in Finland. So you can imagine what happens to innovation and doing new things after that. So basically, it goes into their procurement process, and it doesn't matter what I have done there before. So frankly speaking, my plan has been not to do much, but
Well, take it in
yeah,
a take it in a more theoretical basis. If you had implemented, or sorry, if you implement what you had implemented and they were successful, what would you then go back to them and say, well, here's the next thing that we should be working on?
yeah, and the thing is that this is recorded and this is going to be published, so I cannot say all the things. But that big company that bought them are engaged with a big consulting company that works also in UK and especially in US, and they have their own software that they wanted to get in, and they were
Ah,
actually successful getting the software in, and that changed the whole role of the customer experience in the company, because now
right,
it is about one specific number that's abbreviation is 3 letters. So I'll leave everybody to guess
right,
what that
understood.
metrics is. So it changed the whole focus, and I think they lost the edge, but hey ho.
So I'm guessing that in the abstract or in the more sort of theoretical perspective, what you would then come back to in a typical client situation where you had gone through this process, had successfully made the change, there would be a new round of assessment or looking at existing or continuing problems, and then going back to the same process of trying to help them understand what are the levers that you can move in order to improve this new set of processes that may be contributing to not reaching your goals or objectives as well as you might.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to this infinity loop here, and especially the point number two, which is the disruption. So the bigger burning platform you have, the more pain you have that you need to address. But when the company's maturity advances and they actually get rid of the burning platform, and they start to notice that, by the way, we don't have so many problems anymore. So what should we do now? And that's the interesting situation, because then you start looking into opportunities and start actually building positive things, and you don't have to do it anymore because you are in a bad financial situation or bad processes. They're all fine now. So the next question is, it's actually something that I like to say quite often, that it's very easy to move from bad to good, but it's very difficult to move from good to great.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that good to great is the next step, and that's going to take you actually completely different approach and mindset that it has taken you to move from bad to good. And that's something where that's like the second hurdle the companies come across with, because many of them are moving from bad to good, and that's when you have burning platforms, you do this kind of extreme stuff to optimize the business. But then once you've done it, and then you need to actually start like proactively look where the customer needs anything, or you can serve the client better, or whatever like that, then you need more inquisitive mind, and you need to think about the opportunities, and then the world is your oyster rather than it's your burning platform.
Right.
So
You're getting a lot of positive feedback in the chat column. Ethar is jumping up and down with lots of smiley faces, agreeing with you. John has made the point that understanding the metrics related to moving from good to awesome can be part of the challenge. And both Dan and Bob Sakakini are jumping up and down and agreeing with you as well.
Right.
Are there other questions? Any other comments or questions that people want to make? And I'm hearing none. I want to congratulate you, Jana, on doing an excellent presentation, taking the entire time to do it, but that was what we expected. A lot of good value here, and I would suggest that people think about how they might apply this concept of frameworks in their own work, whether you are a consultant, traditional form of consultant, or whether you're more of an analyst thinking about how to productize the kinds of things that you typically do for both enterprises and other kinds of organizations. I think this concept of being able to create a framework and use it as a way to begin to both explain and then carry out the value delivery, I think is a very valuable exercise. So I want to thank everybody, add my thanks to everybody else who's typing away in the chat window here. I'll remind you guys once again, no drop-in. Sorry, there will be a drop-in. It'll be the face-to-face drop-in. The Fuse session will start 30 minutes earlier than normal next Monday. We'll be back to our regular schedule on the following Monday. So we'll be looking forward to seeing all of you there. Thanks very much, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Recording of the conference has